us here. We are a multi-tenant type of ServiceNow installation. So we actually have multiple universities on, multiple colleges, campuses, agencies, all on our instance together.
That's a unique challenge there.
Yes.
All right, so I found the record button, so this is being recorded. Kim, just to kind of bring up to speed, the idea for this call is that there was a lot of conversation in the ServiceNow Google group around using the PPM application in ServiceNow, and here at USC, we're working with our Enterprise Project Management Office, and Daryl on the call. He's in charge of the project to select a PPM tool, and ServiceNow is in the running. So I know that most of the people on the call here have implemented the PPM application, and we just want you to share your experiences with us, going from how it's been implemented to adoption, how you're using it, resource management. So you had a specific question that you were interested in learning.
I'm always interested in knowing what the others are doing. To give y'all an idea, it's not just one PM, project management office that's using our installation. We're using it here at Texas A&M. We also have a division of student affairs that they have a PMO, so they have their own office. TEACS is another one that is using it. So we actually have not just one, but several project management offices.
Okay.
And we have run into, we're using, to let y'all know, idea, demand, project, all portfolio, project, down to the project task. We haven't got into resource management yet. And I'm not sure we will go down to that level yet.
Hey, Daryl, do you want to start off maybe talking about some of the requirements, or maybe some of the features that you're looking for to kind of get an idea of how we want to use the PPM application?
Sure.
And kind of a little bit of how the EPMO is organized.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. I didn't know if you guys could hear me or not. Okay, hi, my name is Daryl Aiken. We are looking for a PPM tool, and resource management is one of the key things that we're actually seeking. What we want to be able to do is actually forecast and plan the allocation of resources. And of course, not only assign them to projects, but they also need to be assigned for the regular DevOps or operational duties. I mean, I've done this in the past with other tools, and it's just a matter of coming up with a formula. I mean, you're not going to tweak it or perfect it on the first try, but it's something that you improve with over time. And I mean, that's one of the primary key things that we're looking for with a PPM tool.
This is Harry at UC Berkeley. We've been using projects for 3 years now within ServiceNow. We don't really use it from the project portfolio level. We use it mostly just the projects, and we put our projects in there. Projects have tasks. We have 2 different types of projects that go in there. We have our design and project management office, and those are the folks who deal with, oh, we're going to build a new building. Oh, we're going to tear down a building. We're going to go to, this building and renovate the telecommunications closet. And so they do large projects. And then the other projects that we have in there for our telecommunications department, we have every project that we're working on in there. So if we have a project to, let's say, upgrade our Avaya system, or let's say we have a project to look at deprecating a service, or just so all of our projects get in there. So we use ServiceNow for that. And what that allows us to do then is in our manager meetings to say, okay, what's the status of all of our projects that we're working on? So they're all in there in one place. And that has been very advantageous from a planning point of view. What we do is we link up all of our projects to the goals for our larger department and then the mission for the campus. And so having all of the projects in one place is really good for that. I have to say the thing that we like best about having it, there's two things that we like about having it in ServiceNow rather than just in another application. One of those is when we create the project tasks on those projects, what we can do is we can assign them to a person, and then they show in My Work, which is a link on the left navigation, just like all of their other work. And so that's really advantageous. So a staff member comes in, they clicks on My Work, and they can see the 15 things that are in their queue or in their inbox. And it doesn't matter if it's from a requested item, from an incident, from a project, all of their tasks are in My Work. And that's a big win by having the projects in ServiceNow. The other big win that we have is we've customized the projects module slightly by adding a little tab that says, and these are the requested items associated with that project. So let's say the project is to go into the Stanley building, room 220, and tear down that telecommunications project closet and build a new telecommunications closet. What we do is that then we have requested items that come in associated with that project. Oh, I want to install 4 network connections, or I need to install 15 access points, or I need to install whatever it is. Those come in just like they normally do as requested items, but we can link them to the project. So we always know which rhythms or requested items are associated with the project. And that has been a really big help as well for just being able to do that. So those are the 2 reasons why we really like using the projects module in ServiceNow.
Right.
Any questions about that?
That's a good point, especially in an organization where you don't separate people who work on projects and people who do daily operational stuff. Being able to see all of your work in one place is pretty powerful.
We're doing the same thing here at Texas A&M University. We leverage that My Work a lot with incident problems, changes, project tasks, like you said, that will appear on that, and requested items. All of those things are on our My Work page. Makes it, like she said, it is a big win to put it all in one location.
Do any of you track time?
I'm starting to, yes.
Yes, we do it Northeastern against all of our projects and operations. So we're much like you. We have PPM installed. We're not quite using portfolio or program properly. Our portfolios kind of end up tying to our business units, and that's kind of on my list to talk to people about reevaluating that. But we do also use demand and resource management. So we people, so not only do their project tasks open their My Work, and as they go through and do all this stuff, at the end of the week, they go to a time card portal, and anything that they're currently resourced for shows up on the left-hand side, and they pull it over and they sign how much hours they're working, they submit it. We've actually simplified it because we're not requiring additional approvals or anything. We just want to track the time. We don't want to necessarily worry about validation right now. So we've had it set up to go automatically approve every Tuesday or something, but we have multiple reminders out to people and their managers saying, hey, they haven't submitted time. And then, we have these time reports so we can actually go back and, get some better numbers, capital speaking, OpEx and CapEx speaking on how much it's costing us to do all these projects. And so we can have a little bit more, fiscal responsibility. We don't actually have people's salaries in ServiceNow, but we basically kind of did like an average of like, this is what a BA rate would be. This is what a developer rate would be, to basically give us, general ballpark figures of what it's costing us.
Do any of you who are doing time also have tools like Day or you know, a PeopleSoft, or where there are other possibilities to do this, and if so, how did you make the decision to use ServiceNow instead of those tools for time?
We do have other tools. We have Workday that has time in it. And then we have a local one here that we're trying to replace, that we wrote for tracking our time. And we are wanting to replace that local one that we have with the ServiceNow piece, because our department is a service department. We actually have to track our time and charge our time to other organizations. So.
This is Terry at UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
That's what we track as well. We kind of track time, but what we're really tracking is what we can recharge. So on a project, we don't really track the time on a project so we can recharge it. But on all of our requested items that are associated with the project, that's where we track the time. So we have a couple different types of recharge. We have recharge when we install a cable, and that's usually a flat rate. But if we run into some gnarly infrastructure issue, then we start charging hourly labor. And then on every installation where we go and we hook up something, we also recharge that on an hourly rate. So we enter that as hours, but we don't enter it so we can track people's time. We enter it so we can recharge the customer for that.
That is what our goal is too, is to find out what, not necessarily how much time somebody's putting in, like their leave and all of that, but to find out what we need to, like you said, I like the term recharge for the work that was done for a department.
So we're not really focusing on recharging. So we do track their time for paid time off, but we don't really care. Like it's not like HR, so we don't really care if it's vacation or sick or whatever. We just want to know it so we can reduce it from their capacity for resource allocation. And so we know, like, when we're doing resource planning and forecasting, like how many people. And we actually, none of our HR solutions like Workday or PeopleSoft are really tracking like billable type hours like you would for like a project or the sort of engagement, but they do track like your vacation requests or your bereavement or your jury duty or something. And so we actually have, I think it's a weekly feed from that system to our system to update people's capacity. So if I put in vacation for, say, next month, and then my boss goes to see what I'm available for resourcing me to other people, makes me feel so cheap and used, that she'll see that, hey, that week I have less capacity, and I won't be able to necessarily support it, or that, it has to bump the group out. The task out.
So this is Terry at UC Berkeley. Matt, did you say that you guys were using the resources within ServiceNow? The resources?
Yes. Yes.
So we are not using it today, but we want to. We are looking at using it.
Okay.
Do you have a sense of how much overhead there is in getting people into the system to use the resources and ask for allocations on the resources?
So it's, I wasn't here when they implemented it originally. I came in after the fact, but there is a bit of overhead. Your managers do have to kind of take some time. So our project managers are really doing the bulk of the labor of trying to like create the resource requests and allocations and send them off to the managers for approval. The managers really just kind of need to look at their reports and see, like, okay, I have capacity to support these and approve the requests. So that part is having a little bit of trouble. I mean, we were just trying to get our project managers to improve on more incremental resource requests rather than for like the life of the project. You need, a tenth of a person. Like you need a person for, halftime for the first 2 weeks, and then, so segmenting it out and having the managers approve them a little bit more regularly. A lot of our managers have basically just asked the project managers to approve for them, which is bad practice, but it's kind of happening, and we're trying to improve upon that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reporting is functional, but it could be better. So there's some me see if I can show you. Do you guys mind if I screen share?
That'd be great.
Okay, so here I am in my test environment, impersonating my PMO director, and so she's just kind of got a dashboard of generic project stats, right? And so, but as a manager, we have an ITS manager dashboard that we use, and we have a resource tab set up so they can kind of see whose resource plans they've been asked to do. Actually, probably this person is, since she's a manager, project managers, they probably all handle their own resource plans. Let's do somebody else. No, he's not in here. Sorry. Let's do him. So if he goes here, we should be able to see a bunch of resources. We see people with requests and project tasks. His resources, not showing up here either. But here's his resource plans. We have one thing we wanted to do that, I don't know, it's a plus or minus depending on how you guys wanted to do it. It was, we wanted that when managers and leaders were looking at the hours, we wanted to kind of compare or contrast stuff we're doing for, like, you know, run, grow, transform. So that included actually tracking time against our standard operational or maintenance type activities. And so, and we also wanted it to be easy for managers to see, oh, hey, you entered, you know, plus or minus 40 hours a week. So you're, you know, you've entered in your time for the week. And so there's not like large gaps of missing time. So we created these maintenance projects where we resource people against so they can do, you know, standard maintenance activities or maybe small enhancement requests or things that wouldn't necessarily be, you know, a big project. And then we had our actual projects in which we had people build time against. And I was looking to find one of his resource plans.
And what types of projects do you put into ServiceNow here?
All sorts of projects. We put too many as far as I'm concerned, because there's a lot of small things that they end up putting in this project. So to me, it would really just go into your release cycle rather than a project. So there's a lot of things that I would classify as an enhancement or a bug or a defect that they make into small engagement projects.
Okay.
But we don't really have a good release management process in place that for them to accept these things as enhancements or as.
Do you use the Agile module or application?
We're starting to right now. We're kind of giving it, kicking the tires within our own ServiceNow workflow. Mm-hmm. So we're using it for that, but we haven't done it for other enhancements. Yeah. Okay. So here's the
tickets.
Say again?
Where are your development tickets? Like, is there a Jira or something else, and is it connected? Or is it all?
Some of them are in Jira. I think some of them are other places. I think that's part of the problem is a lot of people are using these small projects instead of using enhancements because they're using it in ServiceNow because they don't have another tool. And we haven't, you know, there's no real setup right now in ServiceNow for it. I mean, there is, but we haven't been using it. You know. It's on our to-do list.
At UC Berkeley, we're using Jira externally to ServiceNow. We don't have it linked. We looked at using their Agile a couple of years ago, and there was just a couple things that we couldn't do in ServiceNow that we could do in Jira. But as I said, that was like 2 years ago. And so I know that the Agile application has been greatly improved in ServiceNow, but we just haven't had a chance to look at whether or not we wanted to cut over.
Right. So
we've actually had the Agile, even the original one from Start Now installed. So we've had the stories, the SDLC have gone through many of the renditions. We're actually, at this moment, actually putting Agile 2.0 in, going to that direction. You were asking about tying into Jira and other things. We are looking at trying to figure out how to tie in, some groups want to tie in Jira, some groups want to tie in some other applications, multiple different things going on here. We're looking at how we can possibly do that with request management instead, having it over in that area. So that we get the request, we do the work, we create the trees that we need to over on the GitHubs. So that's one of our projects that we're working on right now.
Oh, that's an interesting idea, to use it as a request. Right. Interesting.
We drastically changed request. It's more like what Matt was talking about. You have projects, you have big projects, and then you have little things. So we took and changed request management so we can actually submit requests without a request item. So we could create little request tasks, and just having a request that has these request tasks underneath it. And that is something that we are that's new to us right now. Mm-hmm. I've been using it probably about a year, but we're actually going to onboard a bunch of other people too soon.
Thanks, Matt, for showing us that stuff. I know we started changing topics there.
Yes.
I really actually wanted to show you guys the resource workbench, because this kind of gets directly to what Daryl was asking for about forecasting. So, because I'm in my test environment and not production, these things are all a little messed up because some of these things are like past due, so they're not quite approved. But normally, as a manager, things that are ready for your confirmation would be here on the left. And as you can actually pick each one of these things and kind of forecast and see what people are working on and what their hours are actually done, and you can confirm and allocate some of these for your forecast. The red line is that capacity line I was talking about earlier, for say where we're getting that feed from our banner system. So obviously this person had a day off this week, versus over here a couple days off. And so you can approve that stuff through here. And then we also have, and it also shows you how utilized they are. So we have a lot of problem with people overutilizing people. And I'm using air quotes here because this is the problem we have where the resource plans aren't really being defined for the week for that activity. And that's, we got to improve our practice there, and what they're actually doing. And then we also have this resource reporting where people can look at to see what they've committed so far for basically their group. Let's say it's web. Last year.
Matt, how long have you guys been using this resource module?
They've been using it for over a year now.
Okay.
And I mean, if you want to talk a lot more in detail, I can talk to my boss on the phone and the old developer, Jack Julio, used to work here, as they were the ones that actually implemented it.
Okay.
But it was, yes.
Do you have the performance analytics for the PPM?
I believe we do, and we started messing around with it a little bit. I've been had a little time to work on it.
So are most of these just reports?
So these things here are the built-in workbenches that come from the combination of PPN and then customizations in the portal.
Okay.
Using the portal tool. The PA analytics, we've only got a few, I think, actually in place. I'd have to look to see if I can find one. I don't have one prepared.
So that last one that we were looking at on the screen where we had the green and the orange. So the green means that they still had capacity and the orange meant that they were over capacity. Is that right?
Correct.
See, I think that's going to be our biggest problem that, we've here at UC Berkeley, we've gone through so many years of budget cuts that we really are over allocated. And I think that's part of the reason why they want to start using the resource modules so they can show, yes, we are over allocated. Really, we are, trust us. And now we can have a little chart to prove that. But I'm a little concerned about the overhead, like we were talking about earlier, just getting the allocation or the requests in there for resources and then saying, yes, I will allocate this person to that time. Is there anything in ServiceNow that prevents you from over allocating people?
No, not right now, but
Okay,
I don't
good.
know if that was by choice, or like we disabled some sort of out of the box, warning or something, or if it was by, or if it's not in there at all. I mean, I imagine it's probably a system property that's a checkbox that says, hey, enforce this or not. But like I said, ours comes down to kind of bad practices because we're in the same boat. We're a very lean organization. But we have lots of demands of us. And everybody, has come from this philosophy in higher ed, which we always say yes. The problem is right now we're running into limits of bodies. But how do we show that and prove that? Like we need to be able to not just prioritize it by their priorities, but we need to show that, hey, if you want us to do this, it's either no or you give us more money to hire contractors. Those are your choices.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that you can configure ServiceNow so it doesn't complain if you over allocate. Because I think when we start, we would be over allocated, but we could use that as a tool to prove that yes, we do need additional resources. Because look, we are over allocated, 8 months out of the year.
I think what we're really having a problem right now in terms of practice and process for resource management is we're not really doing the review part. So we're doing a lot of the allocation and measuring, but we're not really going back to see like how many people, what people actually charged in time against that task versus what was allocated, and doing like, oh hey, we can shrink this up. You don't need this much allocation when you're asking for these types of tasks. Like we're not doing that review and readjust period part of it.
Right. So you're doing all the work to input all the data, but then looking at the data to ask, what is this data telling us? I can see
Right.
that. We do that a lot at Cal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great to do the resource allocation, and then on the other hand, we're also collecting time cards to see what people are charging for that. But there's no double checking to say, hey, are we always asking for 5 hours for this task and it really only takes an hour? Like now we're over allocating and we're not actually doing, fulfilling that time. And that's why we're showing as over allocated, because it took 1 hour, but then we're spending the 4 hours on another task,
Right. And Matt, this is Terry again from Mr. Berkeley. So what guidance did you give your folks when you say, okay, I want you to ask for some hours? So let's say I think something's going to take an hour, but if something goes wrong, it could take up to 5 hours. Do I ask for 1 or do I ask for 5?
I think that really depends on the project manager, the project team, and the size of the project. So they usually kind of figure out what their resource is, usually in a project meeting, like what they're looking for. So the people there are at the table, so they kind of, I guess, have that negotiation or that compromise or whatever. But I think they tend to lean on extra, reserving more time than not.
Okay. Good to know.
Matt, I have another question. This is Daryl again. Do you guys have any APIs into anything like Workday for your resource management?
No, like I said, the only API or integration we have is basically from Banner to ServiceNow, giving us any sort of, days off requests or any sort of PTO time off, so we can sit there and take it off their capacity.
Okay.
Or availability.
Hey, Matt, this is Mitch. How about to ties in with your general ledger?
We are working on that. We actually are trying we started down the path of doing IT financial management.
Yeah.
Not just necessarily for project, but for all of our financial management stuff. And so we built a bunch of integrations to integrate back to Banner and to do things with general ledger. But we've, due to a lot of changes in the organization, particularly finance and our leadership, that kind of stalled out. So yeah, it's half built, I guess, but not in use.
Can I ask, when you decided to go down this path, did you do an evaluation of other products and choose ServiceNow? And if so, for what reason? Or did you just say, hey, we want to stay native and keep building within one central place and you had buy-in to the platform to go there?
I don't know the answer to that question. I can ask real quick. But I'll see if I can find it out while we talk with some
That would
folks.
be great. I mean, anybody else, like, how did you guys come to the decision to use ServiceNow?
We had multiple audits, and we have multiple help desks, and we were basically told we will use ServiceNow.
This is Terry at UC Berkeley. We are one campus in a 10 campus University of California system. And so a lot of our contracting for these types of products are done at the Office of the President. And so they entered into an agreement with ServiceNow, and then it becomes available to all 10 campuses. So that's how we started using ServiceNow.
So nobody went through a selection process.
They did at the Office of the President level. They did.
From a PMO perspective, or just like, let's look at the platform and all of its capabilities?
The latter, the platform and all of its capabilities.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of ServiceNow, is that it is a platform and it can tie a lot of pieces together. I think, you know, there may be other products. So I think we're going to end up with an ecosystem of a lot of different integrations coming into ServiceNow.
Even with us over here at A&M, we did do a selection process but it's kind of was interesting because it was all of the different parts and could actually select, and you know what met their needs the most. We ended up with, like, AgriLife is on AgileLoft. We are on ServiceNow with, like I said, about 15 other units. And then there's also, for some small departments, they chose JITBIT. So we have a lot of choices here. A lot of challenges to integrate with those and avoid having email loops and those kind of problems too.
Yeah. It's always nice when you can just have a standard, but I know that's not always possible, especially in a federated environment. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Daryl,
go ahead.
Yes.
did you have specific questions that would be helpful for you in? We're about to go into this product evaluation kind of bake-off situation.
Well, I mean, I think as far as the resource, management, I mean, that's the piece that I really would like to know more information about, and I think I've probably got about as much as I can. A second question I have is, originally when we were actually testing ServiceNow, there was an issue differentiating between deliverables and milestones. And I was wondering how you guys are actually capturing both of those. I heard the mention of task being assigned, but are the tasks rolling up into deliverables or milestones, or how are you guys handling that part?
This is Terry from UC Berkeley. Before I answer that, Daryl, I'd like to add on to the previous conversation. So we've been using ServiceNow since 2014, and it wasn't until I think 2016 that we started using the project module.
Okay.
So before that, we were using an external projects system from Cisco. It had a variety of shortcomings, and our team was so pleased when we cut over to using the project module in ServiceNow. It just improved their lives in so many ways. And as I mentioned, two of the big ways is now they can see their work in the My Work. And it sounds like such a small thing, but it's, for the staff, it really is a big win for them. And then again, to connect them to the rhythms. And so we kind of did an evaluation when we were looking at getting off of the previous projects application. And we looked at different things. Do we want to just use Microsoft Project? Do we want to use this? Do we want to use that? And I really lobbied to say, well, we have this application that we're paying for. Let's just use ServiceNow. And it turned out to be a really good decision. The folks are really happy with that.
Okay.
I think this concept of, a single place where you can go for all your work is really important. I know it already annoys people that they have to go to ServiceNow to do their work. If we give them extra stuff and extra places to go, that's going to be interesting too. So yeah. I think that's really an important one.
No, I agree 100%. But our goal is actually to get a tool that can actually serve as a central repository, no matter if you're actually using Jira, if you're using ServiceNow, if you're using Smartsheet, any of the other tools that we currently have in place. We just want this to be a centralized place where you can actually get centralized information as far as like tasks, as far as like resources, resource availability, and so on. And that's what our goal is. I don't know if we'll be able to accomplish that, but that's what, I'm actually seeking to see if anyone is using it in that capacity.
This is Terry again for UC Berkeley. Daryl, I did not get a chance to answer your previous question about,
Okay.
Do we set milestones on the tasks? And yes, we do. On some of our projects, especially the larger ones, we have tasks that are marked as milestone tasks, and then they show up differently on the Gantt chart. And so, yes, we do that. In terms of what you were saying, can we have one place for everything and still have people use other systems?
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be problematic if you want them to use other systems and then it just, auto magically updates ServiceNow. Integration sounds wonderful. It's never easy. You have to think about, which is the system of source, which one is the real, the source system, and everything else pushes to that or pulls from that. We have ServiceNow for our request items and our service requests. And then when they get fulfilled, we push them over to the Pinnacle system for our billing. And so we've written that integration, and
Okay.
It's a ton of work. You have to maintain it. It's fragile.
Course.
And so, I understand what you're trying to do. We do the same thing at Cal. We want to let people use whatever they have and whatever they want to use. But sometimes it's a good idea just to have standard business practices, because letting everybody do what they want is expensive. And so it's a balance between, do we want standard practices where everybody puts projects in and they put them in this way where they always have a person assigned to it, so we always know, who is working on what project? Or do we let them do things that, not so stringent or rigorous formality? And there's a cost to letting people do and use multiple tools. But I do understand the allure. I mean, Smartsheets is an absolutely wonderful application.
Yeah, I do have a concern that, people tend to oversimplify the idea that you could integrate, right? It's just simple. It's just a simple integration. There's already one built. Everything's fine. But in reality, I know that there's always something extra. So always some kind of difficulty in mapping, some challenges, not that it's not doable, but over time, now you have two things, an extra stuff that you have to marry every time you upgrade, and so you introduce a lot of complexity into your processes, and that's always difficult.
Right. No, I understand that, and that's a part of what the decision is going to be made on, because I know some of the companies offer third-party APIs, and some of the companies maintain their own APIs. They maintain their own interfaces. So when there are upgrades, they actually maintain those upgrades. I mean, one that's very simple and very common is Jira. I mean, I think most people who are using Jira don't necessarily stop using Jira to put all of their agile projects into a PPM tool, just simply because Jira is pretty much the gold standard for software development right now. So, I mean, things like that we wouldn't really want to actually totally take away from a software developer and say you need to use, tool X or tool Y to enter your information and collaborate.
Well, on that, ServiceNow has an agile application. And
Right.
so like Matt mentioned is that, a lot of the enhancements are going into projects when maybe it would be more appropriate for them not to go into projects, but to go into agile, like Matt is showing on the screen.
Right. No, I'm aware of this in ServiceNow. I've actually seen this. But again, I know some of the tools, they have their own agile modules and they have just a free-flowing bidirectional interface to Jira, so that whatever you enter in Jira, it automatically is transferred over into the PPM tool. And if you do decide to use the PPM tool, it automatically updates Jira as well seamlessly.
So a lot of our groups are actually using Jira to manage their software development work. But one of the things that we can do, and we're trying to look doing, is basically you can create like an agile phase in your project and assign a couple tasks to that, so they can build their time against those tasks. So they're still doing the resourcing part there, but they're actually managing all the different user stories and stuff separately in Jira. So I guess you're not going to get the breakdown into like the story level or maybe the epic level in Jira, but you could at least say, okay, here's my project, here's my different agile phases, and here's my project tasks in each of those phases assigned to different people, and I can resource against those, and they charge their time. So you can still have them, do your upper level project management in ServiceNow plus your resource management against those tasks, but then still have them manage their stories in Jira without having any sort of specific integration between the two. That's really just a matter of picking different phases and stuff here,
That's a really interesting way of handling it. So it's kind of like just creating a stub and saying, yes, this Ray is working for 40 hours on something that's a Jira story. I'm not putting the Jira story into ServiceNow. I'm just saying that in terms of resource allocation, he's allocated.
Right. And I think in our case, I think we might end up doing a little bit more like a sprint, so, hey, you're going to be allocated this much to the sprint. And then all whatever stories you're working on are in there, and you're handling it in Jira, but you come back, you're charging your time in ServiceNow. They're like that project task is kind of equates to like a sprint.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of, that's not, I don't know if that's really best practice, but that's sort of our current practice.
Okay.
Well, the best practice is the one that's followed. So, there is that.
Sorry.
Yeah, we all work for the universities. We know what that means.
Yeah, we actually also do get sort of the cost report by like resource. This is a little out of date, and because this is on my test, and the last time this was copied was in January. But you kind of get an idea. And right now, unfortunately, like what you were pointing out earlier, Daryl, this is we don't have other costs in here. So right now we can track the users and how much we're costing in labor capex, but we're not recording in here additional costs. So I think that's bad practice and not the limitations of the system.
Okay.
But it is, and a lot of this stuff was customized. We used a company called Rego, R-E-G-O Consulting. They're very specialized in the ServiceNow PPM and ServiceNow Agile space to do their work. That's kind of where they focus their practice on. And they did a lot of work to help us customize this. Our PMO director that came in at the time was had come from a regular company, a public company.
Okay.
And then so she had very specific things she wanted to implement for project management. That was kind of outside the norm for higher eds. And so she came in here and she had very specific customizations she wanted to add.
Let me ask about your customizations. What happens when you upgrade the application? Do you have to reach back out to that third party for another update or upgrade for that customized piece that you have in place?
No. When you do upgrades in ServiceNow, they show you like the skipped updates. Let me actually show you upgrade history. So whenever you do an upgrade, you can actually see what's been skipped. what's been applied and what's been processed. You can go through and you review those. And so you kind of take a quick look and say, hey, these are the ones I need to, these are the ones that are okay for me just to apply, and these are the ones I need to look at. Things that are customized completely that are not, so usually we're not customized. You try, the best practice in ServiceNow is always not to customize something that's out of the box. You know, always create new or use something different. I mean, obviously, you have to break that rule sometimes. But for the most part, it's usually things like a label or something that's inconsequential. A lot of the things you're doing that are customized, like a specific report or scripts or something, you're creating a whole new item that ServiceNow would never ever touch. And everything's easily identifiable in the system as something you've created or it's out of the box through their own naming conventions.
I mean, Daryl, so like what we try to practice is not breaking things or changing things on the back end that would prevent us from being supported. So, I mean, there's configuration and there's customization. We're always doing some customization as long as it's in line with a good practice and we're not breaking something that's not going to be supported. We should be fine during upgrades. We may just have to do extra testing.
Okay.
But this is Terry. I'd like to add to Daryl's question. So let's say we have ServiceNow and that's on London patch 6. And we have, I don't know, Jira, and that's on Jira version, I don't know, 5, whatever it is. And then we have this third-party tool that says, okay, I'm going to integrate the two systems. And that's on version 2.0. So now you have 3 upgrades that you have to maintain. You can upgrade ServiceNow. That can be upgraded. The integration tool can be upgraded and needs to be kept current. And Jira can be upgraded and kept current. And so it could be that Jira upgrades and it breaks something in the integration. So then your third-party tool company, you have to contact them and say, hey, we want to upgrade to Jira, but this new version of Jira has a different name for this field that you're using. Can you modify your software? And if they say, sure, we can do it, and we can do it on your time frame, then you're happy. But it could be that that third-party company is saying, oh, well, you know, we're going to get to it, but we aren't going to get to it until next quarter. So that means that you can't upgrade Jira, which has a security upgrade that you need, but you can't do that until next quarter because you're dependent on these other systems also being at the same level of upgrade. So that's just something to be aware of when you're talking about integrating systems and using third-party tools, is that you will run into the situation where you won't be able to upgrade one application because the other one's not ready.
Right. No, that's one thing that we want to avoid, our third-party integration companies. We're actually looking for a PPM company that does all of it in one so that it won't be any finger pointing and so everything won't be compatible. So no, we're well aware of that. In fact, that's part of our criteria for selecting a tool.
Yeah, all of our integrations are really done, I guess, in-house, either directly between the two systems, because ServiceNow can basically be integrated through SOAP, through REST, through import sets, through batches, through scripting on the mid server. Like there's no end way of doing it. So you can pretty much talk to any system, or any system can talk to it. So you don't necessarily need this third-party translation tool to do it. So we try to do that as much as possible, and we work with the data developers. But even when we don't, we have development staff in-house that work on integrations and APIs and stuff that make it a bit, I guess, easier for us.
Same here at Cal. We try to do most of our integrations in ServiceNow using the ServiceNow Integration Hub with the SOAP or REST. Yeah, just for the reasons that Matt said.
Okay, thank you.
Looks like we're coming close to the hours. Any other last minute questions or topics that need to be brought up that haven't? I have one question, if nobody else has anything that they want to add.
This is Terry. I'd like to add something. So please. Prior to us going to ServiceNow, so we went live in 2014, and prior to that, we had software applications that really followed the life cycle of you do the RFP, you find out what's out there, you pick something, you implement it, you change all your business practices to work with the software, or vice versa. then you use it for a while, and it had a lifespan. It had a lifespan usually of, 5 years for that application. And then you had to start the process all over again to, okay, what's the best of the breed out there, do the RFP, and so on. One of the things that we've noticed since moving to ServiceNow is because ServiceNow improves their application so quickly, we really haven't gotten into the situation where this application has become stale. So we did the normal, let's ask ourselves if we need to go out and look at best of breed or something that has new features. And the answer is no, we don't even need to start that process, because ServiceNow actually does a really good job at adding new features to a lot of their modules, or even creating a lot of new modules. And that's a double-edged sword. It does mean that we get 2 upgrades a year, and that's really tough for our staff to try to manage. But it also means that we are always getting new upgrades and new features, and that's really nice. Back to you, Mitch.
Okay,
Oh,
I have a
That's
question.
fine. I think Terry, if you don't mind, you had said something earlier. I wouldn't mind if following up with you later, if that's okay.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right, cool, thanks.
I have a question. The one thing that for us being so big, I don't know how many licenses y'all acquire, but every time ServiceNow does come out with a new product, it means new licenses. It usually means new cost. I'm sitting here with over 1,000 licenses right now. And so those can really hit us hard, is whenever you get these new products and new features and you have to pay more per things, the cost for us is high.
I agree with Kim on that. Yeah.
So this is one reason we're trying to minimize the amount of work we actually use for the ITBM. If we can do it with the ITIL, if you got a user that needs to have ITIL and they need to also have the ITBM, a lot of the features that were in the basic user years ago for SDLC was just user that could create a story. Well, that went all the way up to analyst or planner, which cost a lot more per month. So the cost got really, really high. Then if you add on, okay, now we want to use financial management analyst, whatever, we're got another cost.
Yeah.
So,
and Kim, are you using the Internet 2 pricing?
The which one?
Through Internet 2, higher
Yes.
groups can get the Internet 2 pricing.
In some ways, it saved us money. In some ways, it cost us more.
Oh no, really? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
That's no
We
fun.
even have a custom license for us that we created. We did keep it years ago too, for folks that are just starting, just need incident, just need some very basic things. But the license cost is what hits us and why we really question whether a person is going to use the ITBM products. So
the
one thing,
ITBM license is actually not that expensive, but I guess cumulatively, if you have licensing across the system, you're saying it becomes.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 4 licenses for the IT, the expensive one, the financial management. So we only have that limited to like 4 specific people. And then all of our other project managers and stuff have the same sort of licenses that I told. It's not really costing us anything extra to do that. So we keep our costs relatively the same. But still, we're also not doing, I guess, the same scale as Texas either. We're only got 200 users in our IT organization. So
I've got to run to another meeting. I don't mind leaving this open if you want to continue talking. Is that
I have to go also.
good, or you guys have to run to?
This was very helpful. I hope, Daryl, you got what you needed.
Thanks for
Yes,
sending
thank
it.
you guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
taking
y'all.
some time out. So
Bye, everybody.
With you
have a
all.
good day, all. Bye.
bye, guys.
Bye now.
bye.